Alright, so in the last video we learned how to basically build variables and strings. In this video we're going to talk about math and how you can do basic math with JavaScript and programming. So here we are still in our basic script tag. We haven't really deviated too much from this, but this time I'm going to go ahead and delete a lot of the stuff that we used in the last, and we're just going to keep it clean. The reason I like to do this and keep it clean is just because that way one doesn't get confused by the code that they're writing. What I do recommend though is if you make a mistake or like you want to go backwards, like for some reason, let's say you accidentally cleared this, you can press Command and Z or Control and Z to undo basically any changes that you made here. And so that way like your code is not completely lost. So but that said, for good practice, you may want to just save this and save as opposed to save, and just call this index2.html. That way like your code from index1 or index.html is still saved, and even if you type in some new stuff here in index2 like we're about to, that doesn't overwrite your changes from index1. So I am in index2.html now, and I've saved this file, and I've just did Command S on my keyboard as a shortcut to save. And now I've got my script tag sitting here clean, and it's ready to go ahead and to write some more JavaScript. So I'm going to close this console here, and one thing to keep note is now I'm no longer working in index.html, I'm actually working in index2.html. So I have to go and change this URL here to say index2.html. And as you'll see, I have nothing there because I have nothing here on my code. Let's also save this. But so the reason programmers got around to writing code in the first place was because a lot of programmers were actually scientists that had to do a lot of complicated math problems. And at some point, math becomes very difficult, where even if you're a genius, and you can do all this math in your head, let's just say that, if the math becomes so complicated, you may think you can solve everything by hand, but you might make a mistake. And, let's say that you're not around and somebody else is tasked to do the math. They may not be as good as you. So the best thing to do is to use the computer. The computer is always going to give you the right answer no matter what, as far as math is concerned. So because that's what computers do best. They repeat processes hundreds of billions of times per day, and their answer is always exactly the same answer no matter what. And we'll learn exactly what I mean by that over time. But essentially, the computer was made to kind of help solve a lot of these math programs and math concepts. And for example, let's just say you wanted to multiply big numbers. So we could create a variable here, and we could say var x, and we could say is equal to 200. Or actually, let's make it bigger. Let's make it 228, 3, 1, like that. And then, of course, var y is equal to 3, 2, 4, 8, 5, like that. Now, you could try to solve this by hand, or you could just say x, and then, of course, times, which I have an asterisk for. I can't actually do x because that would be the same variable here. So we use this asterisk to do multiplication. X times y is equal to, and then we'll go ahead and create a new variable called z, and we'll store the result in there. Don't forget a semicolon. And of course, without using a console or alert, I'm not going to see my output. So in order for me to see my output, I have to just say console log, and then of course z. So then semicolon. And now that I've got this ready to go and saved, I'm just going to come back over here and right-click Inspect. And don't forget to refresh this page. And of course, if I come over to console, you can see here is my answer. Okay, so which would you like to do? Would you like to type this by hand, or would you like to just use a basic computer to do this for you? As you can see, the math is so much better, handled by a computer than a human. Imagine how long it would take for you to solve this by yourself without the use of a computer. So, that said, now let's get into like some basic math here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at a concept that you may have not seen since high school. And that is the concept of order in mathematics. And I'm talking specifically about order of operations, called PEMDAS. So if I just jump over to this Math is Fun webpage, I'm doing a simple Google search, and we look at this equation here, 7 plus 6 times 5 squared plus 3. What would you say the answer is? We'll just copy and paste this and close this. So how would we go about solving this anyway? So by hand, we would have to use the order of operations methods first. So that basically says that we have parentheses, like that, and then of course we have exponents, which is part of the PEMDAS, so I'll just put that up here, PEMDAS, like that. Then of course I have multiplication, and then of course division, addition, and subtraction. So using PEMDAS, I can solve this equation just basically by following this order of operations. So if you see parentheses first, you want to do the stuff inside the parentheses first. And then you handle the stuff on the outside afterwards, because that comes down here. So when I look at this, I'm inside my parentheses, and then basically multiplication comes before addition, so I would say 6 times 52 first. Then I would add 3 to the result of whatever is here, and then when I'm done with all this, I would add the result to 7. So if there was a subtraction sign, this would probably come last. So basically, like, I would still handle all this first here, and then I would use the result and subtract that from 7. I'd have a negative number. So this is basically the way the computer is handling your any kind of math statements. It uses the PEMDAS, basically order of operations, to evaluate expressions like this. So we could go ahead and find out what the result of this would be by just creating another variable like we did before, and then of course console logging the variable. And so what do you think this would be? Take a second to guess, like, and try to do the work. Maybe not guess, but just try to do the work and figure out, okay, did I get this right? And then when you do get it right, console log the value of y, and then go ahead and see if you got the answer right. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to refresh, and I'm going to right click and inspect, and it looks like I have an error here, so I'm going to go ahead and fix mine. And that is because, I put the x here, and that's a great mistake, because I just told you that you can't put an x, you have to put the asterisk. So we'll go ahead and save that, and even if you become a seasoned programmer, you still can make mistakes like that, because it's just always one small thing. But of course, when you have the ability to correct your code on the fly and see the mistakes you make quickly, that shows that you have a lot of experience. It's the small stuff like this actually that throws people off, and then they spend tons and tons of hours trying to figure out what it is. So always check your code for syntax errors. So I'm going to refresh, and that takes care of my error, and you'll see that my answer is 322. And if we actually try to use the console now to write this out, let's just go ahead and evaluate how we would do it by hand. So I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to type it just like I would have thought to do it by hand. So I'll say 6 times 52 first, and that's 312. And then I'm going to add that to 3. And then finally, I'm going to add the value to 7. So 315 plus 7 is 322. 322 equals 322. We're good to go. So when in doubt, remember the computer always evaluates by looking at the order of operations. I hope this example was good for you.